Alan backed down onto the train. "Right, don't worry, old-timer," Alan chortled. "Hold on tight and keep your wheels free, and we'll have you home in no time." "Thank you," the old engine wheezed. "I thought they were going to cut me up here and then." "Nah," Alan said. "You would have ruined the look of our junction, and besides, you're not in that bad nick. You should see some of our tank engines, always coated in dirt and rust." The signal arm lifted skywards, and Alan's driver applied his regulator. "We're off! Come along," Alan called back to the coal trucks, which muttered amongst themselves. Starting slowly, but getting faster and faster, they pulled out of the junction and onto the main line. Soon, they'd been switched to a branch line to allow faster traffic to pass them, and were making good time. Alan snorted in front, keeping the train moving. He felt slightly out of breath, but that was due to being stiff from the overhaul, and not the weight of the train. They reached another station, where a worried-looking V2 engine stood, waiting. "Boop, boop," whistled Alan as they sped past, and the V2 watched and replied with a feeble beep. Suddenly, there was a crack, and the western engine, dazed and confused, found himself derailed on a level crossing, and there was Alan, puffing further and further away. "Wait!" the western engine called. "What about me?" Alan suddenly found that the weight of the train was lifted. He thought. The old buffer was more steam than he was letting on, and so gradually got faster and faster as he steamed through the English countryside. Back at the level crossing, a permanent way gang had seen the derailment, and were helping to put the western engine back on the rails. Luckily, only his two little wheels at the front had come off, so they had little trouble. But they had to contend with the angry cries of the road users. One red bus, called Worcester, a blue butcher's van, and a green grocer's van, with their old drivers. "During the war," the butcher said to the bus driver, "I had to help the Home Guard stop a runaway train. It was going to hit the King's train. Oh, and the vicar, verger and ARPP person was on a handcart, following us with a brake. So I says to Captain Mannering, I says..." Meanwhile, Alan had seen a distant signal at danger, and began to slow down. "Bother," he said, "and we were going so well." He stopped under the signal, and was surprised to see the signalman approach them. "Hello," he said. "Hello yourself," the signalman said suddenly. "I haven't had any word on light engine moves." "We're not light engine," Alan said, smirking. "Where's your train, then?" the signalman asked. Alan had a sudden feeling that he was going to the scrap heap. He grinned nervously. "Behind us?" The signalman merely stared at the blue engine. "Invisible, is it?" Alan, still smiling, remembered with a sinking feeling the moment where it had got all too easy a few miles back. "Right, I've stopped traffic," the signalman said shortly. "You'd better go back and find your train." "Yes, sir," Alan said, and quickly backed away. At the crossing, the old butcher soldier was still nattering, but was finally drowned out in a chorus of cheers as Alan, sheepishly, backed into view. "Right, well," he began, but the western engine just laughed. "Well, I did try to hold on tight, but my wheels weren't quite so free." This made Alan feel much better. "Right," he said, "we'll get you home as quickly, but as safely as possible," he added, remembering his taunting of Sir Ralph earlier. He was coupled to the western engine, and with a deafening blast from his cylinders, they were off and away from the crossing. Alan returned home early the next morning. It was still dark, and he was surprised to see Stephen waiting for him, and still shimmering. "You needn't have waited all night for me," Alan laughed. "I didn't. Sir Ralph was keeping us all up last night with his lecture on why western engines are evil," Stephen retorted. "I'm sticking my funnel out here to try and get some rest." "Oh well, you can try now," yawned Alan. "I've had enough for a few hours." "Was our western friend any hassle?" Stephen asked. Alan smiled. No hassle at all," he said, thinking of the engine's kind words.